At this time, our sister Diane Langberg will come and share with us a testimony. She recently returned from Lebanon, where she went to meet with the refugees and to train leaders to counsel victims of trauma.
Well, as has just been said, I have just returned from Lebanon, and you have prayed for me, and for that I am utterly grateful. Those I met there have left home and cannot return. I returned to sit on my deck, enjoy the comfort of home, and sleep in my own bed. Those I met fled from all of these things and cannot go back. As one refugee said, I am alive, but I have lost my life. And another, everything that was no longer exists. Today's refugees number between 50 and 60 million. If this population were a country, it would be the world's 23rd largest. Half of all refugees today are children, the most vulnerable beings on earth. And hidden within this global refugee crisis is terrible violence of women and children. In Beirut, we met with the bishop of the Maronite Church. They are caring for 4,000 Christian Iraqis, which is actually 26,000 people. Many of these people were internally displaced between 4 and 5 times before they had to flee the country. And if that level of flight continues, it is predicted there will be no Christians left in Iraq in 5 years. The bishop spoke about the terrible traumas many have suffered and said this: they have escaped, but the trauma is still alive. We were also taken to meet with refugees in a large valley on the border of Lebanon. It holds 60,000 Syrian refugees, most of them Muslim. They live in the shadow of the very mountains they fled across, most with nothing but backpacks. It was pouring rain. The mud was very deep. There was no running water. The stench was strong. And they are crowded into small spaces with little to nothing on which to survive and feed their families. Until recently, there was no education for the children in the camp. Now there are rudiments of a schoolroom in one of the container-like buildings where I sat on the floor with beautiful little girls, the ages of my 2 granddaughters, and helped as they tried to learn the English alphabet with nothing but paper and pencils. The rain felt like God was weeping. There's a very disturbing poem that's written by a Somalian refugee named Warzan Shire, and the first line says this: "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark." And as I looked around at the deplorable conditions in which people created in the image of my God were forced to live, I understood. Truly, no one leaves home for this, unless home is the mouth of a shark. It is an overwhelming thought to ponder that a safe place for millions of people only exists in permanent strangeness and the loss of all things. We drank tea with a very handsome 24-year-old Syrian who had fled over the mountain with his recent bride. I have 2 sons not much older than he is. And when I asked why he left, he said, "Well, I was being forced to either pick up a gun and kill or flee. And so we ran." He has a university degree in teaching. He fled without papers, so in essence, he does not exist. He cannot get a job outside the camp, but he volunteers in a little school because he wants to teach. And he and his wife had nothing but a rug on the floor, a few pillows to sit on, and tea. He has family in Syria. He can only afford to call them once every 2 months or so. He wept. The following day, I spoke twice at a conference on the topic of trauma, obviously a relevant one. It was in part sponsored by the Lebanon Bible Society. They had hoped for 50 attendees. They got over 160 coming from 7 different Arab countries, all of them leaders. So I spoke to bishops and archbishops and heads of NGOs and many other organizations, all working with refugees in their 7 countries. Many did not understand about the invisible wounds carried by those they were trying to help, nor did they know how to respond to people who had suffered and witnessed truly unspeakable atrocities. Their response was wonderful, and now they want further training, so we're hoping for a multiplied effect across those 7 nations. They say now they have hope for a way forward as they join together across their divisions to pursue a healing work for the trauma wounds of thousands of human beings. I am learning things as I look out over this great crisis. One of them is this: no matter where they come from, who they were or are, what they have done, what their faith is or is not, how they behave, how strange they may seem, every single refugee on the face of this earth is enclosed in this eternal truth. Let us, the triune God, make man in our image and according to our likeness. Or as the psalmist said, you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. No refugee who ever traverses this planet, no matter who they are by race, ethnicity, religion, citizenship, gender, history, or deeds, is exempt from this truth. No one. We cannot interact with any human being who is not an image bearer. Such a human being does not exist. And we must guard our hearts and thoughts against any other kind of thinking, because it is not godly. Second, I believe this crisis is a call from God to his people across the globe. He says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all the unfortunate. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the afflicted and needy. Open our mouths. We need to open them to our fellow believers, because there are many in the church who are complacent, confused, fearful, and in some quarters even hateful. The church is called to weep with the weeping and to pray. Open our mouths to government. They have a very complex task, difficult decisions to make. But as the people of God, we can call to them to do it in a humanitarian way. With respect and kindness, no image bearer should ever be treated in a dehumanizing way. And why is this? In Leviticus 25, this is something our God says. For you are but immigrants and temporary tenants with me. And then in Psalm 39, the psalmist says, hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry, for I am an immigrant with you. God says we are immigrants with him. We are aliens in the land. We are not citizens here, but we are here with him. The very essence of being an alien is aloneness and dislocation, having no home. God says we are immigrants with him and he with us. He experienced an earthly home. He spent lots of time in one as a carpenter. He knows what it means to flee. He knows what it is to have no home and no place to rest his head. His family fled because there was chaos and cruelty in the land and his life was threatened. Jesus knew permanent strangeness in his bones. And in leaving home as a homeless wanderer, he went loving others, teaching us how to live among the war-torn, the disenfranchised, the rejected, and the labeled. And 3, those stark, raw words, no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark, are actually not true. I have been reminded again and again that there is one who left home when it was pure glory. And he left because we were in the mouth of the shark. We had left our true home and didn't know it. We were playing in the sewer. We didn't even see the mouth of the shark. But he left home to become immigrants with us. You know, we read familiar words again and again. He made himself of no reputation. He took the form of a servant. He bowed to death. He became like us. What that means is that Jesus Christ threw himself into the mouth of the shark so that we could go home. He is our home. In him we live and move and have our being, and it is from that home, from him, that he has called us to go out into whatever part of the world we are in, entering into the lives and suffering of others in a way that brings him more clearly into focus and leaves behind his fragrance. Thank you again. Words cannot express my gratitude for your prayers, and frankly, the fact of those prayers came to mind many times in Lebanon, and they continue to do so as I have returned, attempting to absorb what I have witnessed and try to understand exactly what God would have me to do with it.